Well, hello again. Welcome to ChessBase Workshop. My name is Steve Lopez. Thank you for clicking the link and joining us for this presentation, which will begin with an apology, by the way. About a month ago, I got the flu and it turned into bronchitis. I was actually a couple days away from pneumonia. By the time I went to the doctor, I was told that I got there in time. But I'm recovering. I had bronchitis for a couple, 3 weeks, and if you've ever had it, the cough hangs on long after the bronchitis is gone. So I still have a bit of a cough, and I will apologize in advance. There probably will be a time or two in this presentation where I will need to cough, and I will try to put my hand over the mic or turn my head or something so I don't blow your head off with a cough. But I will apologize. I'll excuse myself when I do it because I am not a total barbarian, contrary to popular opinion. Been looking over some old games of mine, not with the purpose of castigating myself, although that frequently happens, but what I am looking at is some old games that I remember very well and trying to recall what I was thinking during the course of a game. Came across a game that's about 20 years old. I played it in 1991, and it's not a terribly interesting game, but what I'm going to do is use the opening of this game to illustrate one of the features of ChessBase 11. Actually, it's been in ChessBase for quite a while. It goes back to, I believe, ChessBase for Windows or for Windows 1.1, but I'm not totally certain. I don't remember anymore. I'm getting older and my memory's failing. Well, let me put some moves in so we can do the search. It was a French defense, which neither one of us played very well. He played this, and I played this because I had no idea what I was doing. And then my opponent played something really strange that is not remotely a book move. So one of the things I was looking at was, what are the book moves in this variation? So this is what he should have played instead of what he actually played. Then white would have done this, then this, then this, and then this. And this is our departure point for what I want to do. What I remember distinctly in this game, 20 years later, I can still remember what I was thinking in the opening, really at about this point, which was obviously with all the pawns pointing this way, the attack would be going over on the king side, on black's king side, white's king side, over on this side of the board. But you have this bishop right here, this light squared white bishop. I was wondering, where is that going to go? What would be the best square for it? Would it be E2, D3, or B5? And it was really troubling me during the game. As the game progressed, as I said, it ended up being a weird variation anyway. It was not even a book variation. But I was really wondering, if you have a pawn chain in the French defense, it looks like this. Where is this bishop supposed to go? What's the best place for that bishop? Well, you can find that out in ChessBase. And one way to do it would be to look this variation up, find all the games, make a tree of all the games, and start playing through variations to see where the bishop lands. But the problem is that it's time consuming. You'd have to play through a lot of variations in a tree. Well, there's a feature in ChessBase that will actually graphically display where pieces wind up. I'll show you how to do it. First thing we want to do is we want to get to the ending position of this 6-move variation after black has played queen b6. Then we come down here, we open up the ChessBase 11 database desktop, and we will do a search in the Mega Database 2011 for this position. So let me click search. And I'd actually already done this before, but let me click reset to show you how it'd be done. You'd wind up looking at this. You'd go to the position tab and you select copy board, and that brings that position after queen b6 onto this board, and that's what we want. So we will click OK here. Excuse me. Told you I'd have to cough. I was trying hard not to. It only takes a few seconds. We wind up with a complete list. It's, I think, 47 games, if I'm not mistaken. It is 47. What we do then is we left click on the first game. Then we right click, go to edit, and go to select all. And what that does, you can also do a shortcut, Control A on your keyboard does the same thing. Selects all of these games. Then we right click. And you've got a couple different ways you can go here. You can send them to the clipboard if you want to, or you can do it right here in this view. What we're looking for is this command right here, piece probability. Let me click on it, and we'll explain what this is. What this is a graphic display that shows you how often particular pieces wind up on particular squares in the games that you have selected. So note again that we took the position after black's sixth move, queen b6, in this weird little side variation of the French defense. Isn't played very often. 47 games out of 4 million plus isn't a lot. We took those games and we basically merged them together, and then we're going to find out where particular pieces go in this opening. What we were interested in was white's late squared bishop, which would be this little block right here. We'll click on it. Now, there's a couple toggles down here you need to be aware of. Time on square. In the first 20 moves of the game, it was 1 through 20 in all 47 of these games, the bishop spends most of its time on c1. In other words, in most of those games, it doesn't come out until a bit later, maybe a little bit later, more toward, a move number somewhere in the teens. However, where does it go is what I'm really interested in. So I'm not interested in the fact that the bishop stays on this square for a long time. I'm sorry, did I say c1? I meant f1. Bishop stays on f1 for quite a while, but that's not really what I'm interested in. What I'm really interested in is what squares it goes to. So where does the late square bishop end up in this variation? Well, let me click on moves to square. We wait a few seconds, and what it does, it changes the view, and the little dots are very small, so you can make them bigger. You go here to the plus sign, this button right here where the mouse is, and we'll make these a little bit bigger, make the columns a little higher, maybe not quite that high, and we're going to try to find out where this bishop, the f1 bishop, the late squared bishop, most often goes to. And what we notice is that I was kind of on the right track in that I was looking at these three squares. What will happen is the bishop tends to go to d3 more often than any place else. Notice, though, that it does occasionally go to b5, and I'm going to guess that it will capture a knight on c6, or maybe even possible swap off for a bishop on d7, which is why we see little columns on those two squares as well. Another destination, which is pretty rare, judging by the size of the columns. The bigger the column, the more time it spends on the square. If you're looking at that particular view, the bigger the column, the more time it spends on that square. Or if it moves to square, the more often it goes to a particular square. That's what the height of the columns signifies. Notice that in some rare cases, the bishop kind of does the fianchetto thing, goes to g2 or h3 once in a great while. But what it typically will do, once in a while, to go to e2 as well, but typically it's going to go to d3. Now, notice there are some little dots over here. Once in a while, it's going to back off to c2 or b1 also. But what that's basically telling me is where you most often see this bishop go. Judging from the size of the columns, it most often goes to d3, and from there to c2, or probably the second biggest pick, it goes out to b5, and then from there it'll do something on c6 or d7, and we can infer that it captures a knight on c6 or a bishop, or maybe a knight on d7. So that's what this does. I'll go back over how to do this one more time. We'll close this view. We'll come back here. Just left click on the first game in the search results. Right click. Go to Edit and select all to highlight all the games. Then you right click and go to Piece Probability. The default is usually the white dark squared knight. This knight, the G1 knight, is the default, but you can choose any particular piece by clicking from the selection here on the right. As I said, white's late squared bishop, the f1 bishop, is what I was interested in, so I clicked on that. You have two more toggles down here, time on square and moves to square. How long it's on a square, or what square it goes to, between moves 1 and 20. Just at this point, I'm generally just interested in the opening at this point. So moves 1 to 20, these can be changed. We can make it 1 to 21, 22, 23, whatever we want to do, or we can put in a block. We want to see end games, we could put in higher numbers. But I was looking at the opening, so moves 1 through 20. The amount of time spent on a square is this radio button. Remember, the height of the column, the size of the block, the blue block, denotes more time on a particular square. If you select moves to square, the height of the block, size of the block, denotes how often it goes to a particular square compared to others. Notice you can make the blocks larger or smaller with the plus and minus buttons over here. And logarithmic just gives you a different view. It's explained in the help file. It's not explained to any great extent. So it's basically a different view. Sometimes if you wind up with a very active piece and a lot of really tall blocks, it's kind of a shortcut just to make things smaller. It's really what it does. N equals 47 shows you that there are 47 games that are being considered here. But this is a really handy tool. Oh, by the way, you can zoom in and zoom out. I forgot to tell you. You can zoom the board in, zoom it out, and if you right-click in the actual display here, you can swing the board around just like you do with the 3D boards in Fritz and in ChessBase. You can swing that board around. So there you go. It's very simple. And it's a whole lot easier to have the software do the work for you than to go through a whole bunch of variations, just going through variation, 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 one after another in the opening tree, trying to determine where that bishop went and trying to figure it out. You're just a couple clicks away from getting a graphic display as to the probability of particular squares. What this does not tell you is what circumstances does the bishop go to E2 or D3 or B5, or if it goes to D3, why it would come back to either of these two squares. That's what you need to go into the games and into the variations to find out, to determine those circumstances. But what this does is it's a guidepost to put you on the right track to looking for that information. You can go in there and try to find information by going through the games, try to find out why the bishop goes to particular squares. But at least this gives you a heads up as to what is most commonly played in a particular variation. It's a very underused feature of ChessBase. In fact, there's a lot of people don't even know it exists. That's why I wanted to do a video on it and bring it up. It's a really handy little tool, particularly when you're studying the opening. You can find piece placement, the probability of a particular piece going to a particular square. Well, that's it. Till next time for ChessBase Workshop. I'm Steve Lopez. Till we meet again, please do have fun.